Chapter 13, Drinking and Alcoholism. Some myths and realities about drinking and alcoholism are that Americans like to drink, they are among the heavy drinkers in the world. Reality is that globally, Americans tend to be moderate drinkers, ranking neither among the heavy drinking nations nor among the practically dry ones. Another myth is that alcohol usually diminishes the drinker's moral competence, causing the drinker to behave badly. Reality is that alcohol itself does not produce any moral failings. This is usually within the own person individually and having their own moral failings. Additionally, binge drinking, another myth is that binge drinking on the United States campuses has become more common today than in the past years. The reality is that binge drinking has actually lessened throughout time on college campuses. Introductions is typically college students tend to drink as a result of stress, but there are also other factors. The extent of drinking alcoholism. While binge drinking is prevalent on college campuses, majority of Americans aren't alcoholics. Only about 6% of U.S. adults are actually alcoholics. 63% are moderate drinkers, which drink about 1 to 2 drinks a day and no more than that. Then 37% of U.S. adults do not drink at all. Alcohol abuse is much more common than any other illegal substance abuse. This is due to the fact that alcohol has been normalized within our society, as well as it's offered at generally most events and social gatherings. The economic cost of alcohol-related problems such as production or injuries or drunk driving is about as high as $90 billion a year. Some more myths about alcohol use is that the homeless population tends to be alcoholics, when really only 6% of the homeless population are actually alcoholics. Majority of alcoholics have families and live at home. Another myth is that mixing drinks can make you drunk faster. In reality, it's about how many drinks are consumed within a short amount of time. Splashing your face or drinking hot coffee could help you sober up faster, but reality, there is no way to sober up any sooner. The only thing you must do is have to wait till the alcohol runs out of your bloodstream. Another reality is that beer drinkers tend to be the largest group of alcoholics than any other group of alcohol beverage drinkers.
What is alcohol? Alcohol is a drug since it affects our mental and physical activity. Alcohol is a depressant which reduces our mental and bodily functioning. Alcohol is an incompetence producer. What is the effect of alcohol? It affects on drinkers' equilibrium, may result in his stumbling, bumping into things, knocking them over, falling down, judgment of time and distance, task may be poorly executed. Generally, public believes that alcohol produce moral failings. In the manner of self-fulfilling prophecy is so strong that many people in our society do indeed show moral failing after a few drinks. What is that determines the different degrees of intoxication? Although muscle density also affects that rate of intoxication, generally a small-sized person may become intoxicated after drinking only 1 beer, but a large-sized person may stay sober after 3 or 4. The higher the percentage of alcohol in a beverage, the quicker the intoxication effect. That's why a 90 proof whiskey containing 45% alcohol is more powerful than a 6 proof beer containing 30% alcohol. Alcohol is not digested as food. It goes through the walls of the stomach and small intestine and is absorbed directly into the bloodstream. So food in the stomach can retard absorption of alcohol and weaken its intoxicating impact. An individual with a higher level of tolerance for alcohol through more frequent, heavier drinking will become less intoxicated than one with a lower tolerance if both consume the same amount of alcohol. Moderate drinkers are generally healthier, live longer, or have lower death rates than abstainers. Moderate drinkers are also much less likely than tea tolerance to suffer more from heart disease. The most common damage done to the body by immoderate heavy drinking involves the liver and destroy liver cells and thereby cause fat to accumulate in their liver may result in cirrhosis of the liver. Heavy drinking causes to heart disease, stroke, coronary heart attack, cardiomyopathy, hemorrhagic stroke, impaired memory and ability to learn, premature aging with neurophysiological performance, more characteristics of much older person, fetal alcohol syndrome, characterized by damage to the fetus central nervous system, small infant weight and size, and various birth defects. Heavy drinking with heavy smoking. It affects developing cancer of the mouth, throat, other areas of body assaulted by alcohol. Moderate drinking can bring social benefits, sociability, hospitality, relaxation, recreation with others, but there are negative social consequences such as high rate of automobile accident, high rate of criminal offense, more violent crimes, homicide, aggregative assault, and forcible rape.
So there are differences between who use and abuse alcohol, and that does rely on social factors. Between men and women, it has been estimated that men are 4 times more likely to drink comparison to a woman. Over the years, it has changed. Women have started to drink more, but nonetheless, men still drink more and have more alcoholic problems than a woman. Reason why there is a gender gap, it's because it's socially acceptable for a man to drink in comparison to a woman, and there is a strong link between masculinity and those who use and abuse alcohol. There among ages, younger men are more likely to drink heavier in comparison to an older man. And same thing goes with the woman. A younger woman is more prone to drink more than an older woman. Amongst racial and ethnic backgrounds, it does vary. According to African Americans compared to whites, they are less likely to drink, but significantly more likely to become alcoholics. And as a result, they do have higher rates of alcoholic related diseases. Studies have shown links between poverty and drinking problems. Therefore, poor black people are more likely to become alcoholics in compared to middle and upper class black people who are much less likely to use and abuse alcohol. Among Hispanics, Hispanic Americans are more likely to drink less than Anglos. This was the thought of the Hispanic value of machismo. More recent research shows that Hispanic heavy drinkers show no greater interest in machismo in comparison to the moderate drinker. In contrast, Anglo culture do link machismo and being a very heavy drinker, and successful Hispanics are less likely to drink alcohol as well. Amongst Native Americans, they have more serious alcoholic problems. They have higher rates of problems related to alcohol, such as alcoholic cirrhosis, arrest for public drunkenness, and alcohol related accidental deaths. Socioeconomic factors do push them to become alcoholics, and tribe also plays a role, whether they drink heavy or not. Among Irish Americans, they have the highest rate of alcoholism in the US society. Culture does play a huge role since Irish people do consider drinking as normal and treat the drunk as a lovable person. Italian and Chinese Americans don't drink as a means to get drunk, but rather drink casual with meals or family ceremonies. And Chinese don't see being drunk as funny or comical, rather view drunkenness with contempt. And both ethnicities have the lowest rate of alcoholism. Amongst Jews, they do drink at a very young age, but for religious reasons. Wine is considered to be sacred uh, and not meant to get drunk. Many aren't very religious but still maintain a low rate of drinking problems. Four factors that protect Jews against alcoholism is Excessive drinking is not a Jewish character. 2. Practice of moderate drinking since childhood. 3. Disapproval of their peers. And 4. Conscious attempt to avoid excessive drinking. Conservative Protestants and Southern Baptists do prohibit the use of alcohol and thus have the largest portion of non drinkers in comparison to Catholics and liberal Protestants. If the conservative drinker does drink, they are more prone to become a problem drinker. And the reason why is because they've abstained only and never learned to be a moderate drinker. Therefore, if they deviate, they become problem drinkers. Socioeconomic status does play a role as well. More people in higher socioeconomic levels drink more in comparison to those with lower levels. But yet, there is more problem in the lower class people. They have more drinkers and alcoholics. Um, and two explanations why this might happen is one, drinkers of different classes use alcohol for different purposes, and two, and there might not actually be any difference of alcoholism in between the classes. The first one is more convincing simply because lower classes do have a
Hello, everybody. My name is Miguel Geary, and I'm here to talk about what is alcoholism. Let's first talk about the regional location of it. Alcohol consumption is the highest in the Northeast, lowest in the South, and intermediate in the Midwest and West. The states that have the higher rates of alcohol use are generally more urbanized, which means that cities and suburbs have more drinkers than rural areas. The South has the lowest level of alcohol, but it has the highest rate of drunkenness. Let's move on to a global perspective on drinking. Throughout the world, liquor and beer have become much more popular than wine. More affluent societies consume greater quantities of alcohol than do poorer societies. Western European and North American societies consume more alcohol than the less economically developed countries in Southeast Asia and in the Middle East. France, Germany, and Britain consume more alcohol than do the United States and Canada. Russia is a country that drinks even more than the Europeans. Since Russians developed, invented vodka actually, they have been heavy drinkers. A Russian writer says, vodka has provided access to a private life that is close to the state, a place where it is possible to relax, to forget your troubles, to engage in sex with the illusion of free choice. Let's move on to what is actually alcoholism. There is no specific definition of alcoholism. The most popular definition was by the World Health Organization in 1952. Alcoholics are those excessive drinkers whose dependence upon alcohol has attained such a degree that it shows an interference with their bodily and mental health, their interpersonal relations, their smooth social and economic functioning. The four types are excessive drinking over an extended period, psychological addiction, and irresistible craving of alcohol. 3. Physical addiction, experiencing physical discomfort when drinking stops. 4. Alcohol-related problems such as divorce, car accident, or inability to work because of uncontrolled drinking. Becoming an alcoholic. When people take a drink for the first time in their lives, they do not necessarily become alcoholics. Usually a sequence of events trigger them to be dependent on alcohol. Social drinker. The first stage is called pre-alcoholic stage. Prospective alcoholics begin as social drinkers. Through drinking, they discover their ability to experience some relief from tension. People in this stage can still control their drinking so that they continue to function normally in the social world. Psychologically addicted. Second stage. Social drinkers begin to show signs of abusing alcohol if they start to experience blackouts. Blackout is an attack of amnesia or memory loss. In this stage, people have a strong craving for alcohol. They start drinking a lot, drink alone, and drink in the mornings. Physically addicted. Third stage. People become physically addicted in the sense that they start having chills, shakes.
My name is Anahis Shahnazarian. This is Chapter 13, and my part is college students and alcohol. Since the late 1980s, many college students have increased their alcohol consumes. Most college students, nearly 56%, drink in moderation or abstain from alcohol. In fact, more students today abstain than did in the early 1990s. But over the same period, the relatively high incidence of binge drinking has remained constant. Some 44.2% of college students engaged in binge drinking in 2010, which compared to the almost identical 44.4% in 2001 and 44% in 1993. Binge drinking started to become a serious problem on many campuses in the late 1980s. About the same time, the legal drinking age was raised to 21 throughout the country. In the 1996, sociologist Wellesley Perkins of Hobart and William Smith Colleges in New York discovered from a survey at his school that students believed their peers to be drinking 5 times a week, while in reality they were drinking only twice a week. A student at other schools were also found to overestimate their peers' drinking. As a result, Perkin theorized that students will drink in accordance with the real drinking norm at their school if they know it. To test his theory, he used posters and newspapers ads to publicize the fact that most students drank only a little. Over the next 2 years, Perkins observed a significant drop in excessive drinking. A social profile of college binge drinkers. College binge drinkers tend to have the following characteristics: being male, being white, age 18 to 23, traditional full-time students, never married and living independently of their parents, having parents with a college degree, engaging in risky behaviors such as smoking pot or cigarettes, being involved in athletics, being fraternity or sorority members, having indulged in binge drinking as high school seniors. Women and alcohol. Compared with men, women are generally more vulnerable to alcohol and less able to hold.
Soto, and my sections were the alcoholic personality up to the present. So the alcohol personality is a list of traits that is attributed to alcoholism. Some of these include being antisocial, egocentric, depressed, anxious, hostile, hyperactive. Some of the problems with these are there's no consensus on how many or which ones exactly are attributed to alcoholism. Some say as little as one can make you an alcoholic. Some personality traits are also contradicting, such as being hyperactive and depressed. As a result of alcoholism, it's also confused on what are causes and results of it. For example, someone who's depressed is already depressed, so they drink, or somebody who starts to drink and then becomes depressed because of that. Some researchers also say that dependency is the key to alcoholism. They become dependent on alcohol to suppress unwanted emotions. Others say that power is the key to alcoholism. They feel the need for personal power, and it's found in drinking, as well as feeling like drinking gives them strength. Power is linked to their conscious, whereas dependency is linked to their unconscious. Drinking to feel tough, but unconsciously doing it to suppress their anxiety would be an example of that. Social and cultural forces. There's two explanations. The social theory asks why certain groups are alcoholic, whereas the social psych theory asks why individuals are alcoholics. Explaining the individual difference. To be an individual candidate for alcohol, one must have vulnerable personality traits, self-hate, worthlessness, and anxiety, where that leads to joining drinking groups who enable their drinking and do it to feel like a man, and then they feel like they belong to that group. The drinking increases when they hang out with these groups. They feel the need to drink more or outdrink others, so they seem like more of a man, but they end up losing control and then being outed by the group for being reckless. And then once they're outed by that group, they feel like they need to find a new group of people to drink with, a group that's more tolerant and just as abusive as them with the drinking, and that just kind of puts them further in the hole of alcoholism. Explaining the group differences for cultures, three factors that create high rate of alcoholism: the production of acute inner tensions in people by their culture, a culturally induced attitude towards drinking as a means to relieve those inner tensions, and the failure of a culture to provide a suitable substitute for the means of resolving that issue. Every culture has their alternative to resolving these tensions. Certain groups, such as the book gave the example of Irish, they tend to resolve these tensions and issues with drinking, and it's culturally accepted. Controlling alcohol use and abuse. In the past, Puritans condemned drinking, excessive drinking. They drink beer and rum, but drinking excessively was looked down upon in the culture. During the Prohibition era, which was around the 1920s, they outlawed drinking, but it turned out to be a big failure and was repealed in 1933 because there was a lot of illegal drinking happening anyway. There was smuggling. Middle class, during this time, the middle class set to ban the alcohol that they felt like the lower class indulged in. They felt like it was really just a lower class problem. But a new white collar middle class emerged to accept moderate drinking, and it became a cultural norm, and that group came from the middle class. In the present, in the 1990s, the Clinton administration imposed the sin tax on hard liquor, but it ended up failing, and he changed his mind. The liquor lobby was just too strong to pass any sort of law as well. We've also experienced the lowest taxes on liquor for the past 4 decades because of the liquor lobby being so strong. In 1982, MAD was created, Mothers Against Drunk Driving, which was created to prevent teens drinking and driving and raise the drinking age to 21 nationwide. The amount of alcohol-related incidents has decreased as far as automobile accidents, but binge drinking and alcohol poisoning has remained the same. The drinking age law encourages underage drinkers to binge drink or pregame to events and parties that check for ID. So people that would not be allowed to drink in venues would just do it before, and they do it through binge drinking. Teens 18 to 20 feel the need to drink to also prove their adulthood, so it doesn't stop that. Social host laws have been created to discipline elders from providing underage teens and adults with alcohol, but that's really hasn't done much. Researchers have also found that kids whose parents buy them alcohol tend to binge drink, whereas kids who drink with their parents learn how to drink responsibly and don't really binge drink.
So my section will be covering therapeutic approaches, detox and treatment centers, Alcoholics Anonymous, and whether or not alcoholics can drink in moderation. The definition of therapeutic approaches is that it assumes that abusive drinkers are actually patients who need assistance, and this leads right into detox and treatment centers. In the early 1970s, alcoholism was starting to be viewed as a disease, and because of this, there were laws placed in 20 states that treated alcoholics who abused public drunkenness laws as patients rather than criminals. These patients were placed in detoxification centers for treatment and halfway houses for aftercare. Many who leave detoxification centers oftentimes go back at some point. The reason behind this is that many patients refuse to see themselves as alcoholics. Other abusers who do not violate public drunkenness laws have numerous community-based treatments that they can turn to if they want to. Service in these centers include therapy and counseling. These services provide group therapy and aversion therapy. Group therapy involves bringing in friends and family of abusers, educational videos, lectures, and discussions. Aversion therapy involves the use of electric shock and nausea-inducing drugs in order to give the alcoholic the illusion of feeling sick at the sight of alcohol.
Usually, aversion therapy is only effective for a shorter period of time, and the combination of both aversion therapy and group therapy is more successful. There's also a more popular and effective method that people often turn to because it's a little more accessible. It is Alcoholics Anonymous. Leading right into it, Alcoholics Anonymous was founded in 1935 and is seen as the most successful and popular method in helping to treat alcoholism. Members are able to pick sponsors, and what sponsors are recovering alcoholics who are able to come to a new member's need when they need it. Meetings are generally held in offices, schools, churches, or private homes. A typical meeting includes a leader to begin speaking and introducing members who will be joining the discussion. It typically leads into members discussing their past and current struggles with alcohol. Members will compare their struggles with one another and offer comfort. The aim of this program is to help people understand alcoholism and to live with the help of other members going through the same struggle. However, researchers have found that this program provides that what alcoholics were searching for before starting their abuse, which is social acceptance, a more positive identity, confidence, etc. The AA program has led to similar organizations for all different sorts of addictions. AA assumes that alcoholism is an incurable disease. This is why it often pronounces that once an alcoholic, always an alcoholic. Because alcoholics are not expected to ever fully recover, members who have been sober for years still consider themselves to be recovering and not recovered. AA believes that in order for one to remain sober, they must remain fully on the wagon. This means that even a sip of wine can cause people to relapse because they have an incurable disease and it must be maintained. Alcoholics can never drink moderately, giving the assumption that they can and will only cause them to find excuses to drink and to relapse. In contrast, many researchers believe that alcoholism is not a disease but is instead an unhealthy behavior pattern. Moderation theorists' studies have found that many alcoholics are actually able to drink moderately without relapsing back. However, many of these alcoholics may have merely been only problem drinkers who had not yet developed a severe drinking problem. For people who have been severely addicted to alcohol, AA still believes that abstinence is the best way to go in order to live an addiction free life.